Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to continue building knowledge of the elements of fiction, especially when it comes to points of view, conflicts, and plot. And then you're going to demonstrate your reading comprehension by applying those elements to the text. What is the name of the text we're reading? The things they carry, yes. Okay, so first let's do a recap of setting and characters. So first of all, what good period does that text take place? Okay, so, but what's the, remember there's the classical, there's those time periods. Which one was where are we? Postmodern. Thank you. Postmodern. Do you guys remember the isms? Romanticism, idealism, realism. Okay, so what ism are we in? Are we using right now? Realism, which is the opposite of idealism, right?
Yes. Because it would
okay.
Be bad.
Hint for the CUA, you're going to need to know about feminism. So what is feminism?
The thing that they do not like gender norms.
Yeah, they don't like gender norms. Anything pertaining and empowering women, right? Okay, so there's two types of setting. What types are they?
Background, right?
There's background
And
and integral. Integral. Okay, so the setting of this story that the book we're reading is?
Yes.
What's the setting?
Vietnam.
The Vietnam War. Okay, is it background or integral?
Background.
You think so? Remember, background is when the story takes front stage and it doesn't matter what time or place it's in. You can take that story and put it anywhere.
Oh,
Or integral is when the setting itself is almost a part of the story. So it is definitely integral. Okay? All right. We talked about characters. There's which one it has depth?
Lieutenant Class.
No, which no, what do we call a character that has depth? Round. Versus what?
Flat.
Flat, the ones that don't have depth. What's a character that changes?
Dynamic.
Dynamic. Versus?
Static.
Static. There are 4 types of characters. What are they?
Lieutenant Class.
Huh? What? Protagonist? Antagonist? No. Foil and secondary. Okay. A foil does what?
Makes the protagonist.
Yeah, they bring out the characteristics of the protagonist, and a foil is normally a secondary character, right? Does an antagonist always have to be a bad person?
No.
No, it's just somebody that's opposing them. Okay. We figure all this out through the characterizations. There's 2 types. What are they?
2
Explicit and implicit. And what's the other words for these?
Direct.
Yeah. So if I do a direct characterization, what am I doing?
You give the example.
Yeah, describing them, right? I could sit there and be like, well, Eric is tall and he has black hair, right? He's wearing a sweatshirt. That's direct. You don't have to guess about it. That's exactly what it is. But if I do implicit or indirect, what am I doing?
You're describing them during the story.
Yeah, it's describing more their actions and their emotions, those types of things. And they're the hints that tell me about who the character really is. Okay, so since we got all that, is there any questions about the character analysis assignment?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we can go ahead and move on to the 2 lessons today. Also, remember tomorrow is picture day.
Yeah.
So we will be going to get our pictures done. And then you're going to have a short grammar quiz, and then you'll have time to finish reading, because by Thursday you need to have the entire packet read, and there might be a pop quiz on Thursday about it. Yes. Okay, points of view. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about this before. It's basically the narrator's voice. Every story is told from one perspective or another, and we call it a point of view in literature. So basically, it's the way the narrator is able to observe and share what they're seeing with the reader, okay? There are 3 types of point of view: first person POV, second person POV, and third person POV. POV is obviously short for point of view, so if I ask what's the POV, you know it's point of view. So the first type, first person. This is our most common when we talk. So first person point of view is one of the characters is in the story is telling the story, okay? It's either a major or main character, a protagonist, or a character close to the protagonist, okay? It provides intimate information about other characters, but that information is only based on what they're seeing. Only what they're seeing. They're not going to be in that person's head, okay? They can only tell you about the actions that they see, right? So if it's first person point of view, I'm like, well, I see that Jaden is talking when I'm talking, and this is what I perceive, but I don't know what's going on in Jaden's head, right? All right, so that's basically first person, and they will tend to use first person pronouns. The I, we, our, right? Technically, all the things you're really supposed to avoid when you're writing, okay? When you write your essays, you're not really supposed to use I, we, or our.
At the beginning or
Ever. But I let it slide.
so you're not supposed to start a sentence with I?
Nope. So, then we have second person point of view. You guys will rarely see this in literature, okay? Because in reality, second person point of view is mostly utilized for manuals and those types of things, or recipes. You need to do this, you need to do that. It tends to draw the reader into the story, rarely used in novels, and then they tend to use you. Now, if you want an example of this, have you guys ever done that Choose Your Adventure books? Those are second person. You need to do this. This is also another term you need to avoid when you're writing. Don't talk to the reader, okay? Don't say you, blah, 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 okay? Any questions? Let me let this person in. Okay. Okay, the next one is third person point of view. The author is the narrator, and they'll tend to use he and her and third person pronouns. But this one's a little tricky, and I need you to pay close attention to this one. Everyone, I need you to pay close attention, because there's actually 3 different types of third person. Yes. Yes, there's third person objective, third person omniscient, and third person limited. So let's take a look at those.
Just wait.
Okay, the objective third person, the narrator is neutral. They could care less. It's an outside observer. It's just telling you the entire story. It's not in anybody's head, okay? So the narrator simply reports the story in an impersonal manner, and they do not have access to the inner thoughts or intentions of any of the characters, okay? So this is different from first person, right? Because first person says I and doesn't have access. This one isn't bringing themselves into it. They're completely separated from the story, okay? This is very different from omniscient. So we tend to use this term omniscient when we talk about God. So think about being God watching down, right? On the story, God has access to everybody's thoughts, everybody's feelings, sees everything. So this narrator is the all-knowing, all-seeing, and reports all the facts and events and knows all the thoughts and feelings of every character. So it's going to jump from character to character to character, and it's going to share everything with you. Okay, that's also different from limited. And I want you to think limited to 1, okay? This narrator provides the story from the perspective of one single character. Just one point of view, and the story and events are interpreted from that character's perspective. So it's an outside observer, but they're kind of stepping in, and they're giving you the viewpoint of one character, their thoughts, their feelings, and how they interact with everybody, okay? So 1. Limited is 1, omniscient is all. and then objective is a bystander. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Important note. Hint, hint. Some writers switch up the POV within their story and use different points of view to move their stories forward. Tim O'Brien, who is a writer of The Things I Carried, is one such writer. So today at some time before 11:59, you do need to go and put which point of view you think it is. It might have more than one. Hint, hint, it does. And I also gave you another hint. It's definitely not second person. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and tell me what you think it is. You're gonna go ahead and put it in there, okay?
Wait, but
Make
it doesn't
sure.
have me. Let's choose an answer.
Okay, and so you can also look at some of their other ones. Okay, make sure you put your name so I can give you credit. So what do you guys think it is? Omniscient, omniscient, and then limited, right? Because every once in a while it's just one person. Yeah. So he does flip-flop. All right, so if you don't have any questions about that, now we can talk about conflict and plot.
Oh, I know those are big.
Yes. So we all know what conflict is, right? What's conflict?
Conflict is something.
A problem, right? Or a fight, right? And I'm recording. Okay, but I'm recording. Okay, so we all know about conflict. I experience it all the time, but it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means in literature, okay? In literature, we don't just have conflict for the sake of conflict. It has a purpose. It's basically a literary device characterized between a struggle between two opposing forces. One force does not have to be bad. You know, they can just be opposing. But again, it's not just for the sake of conflict. It's not just to make it interesting. It's to provide crucial tension and is used to drive the narrative forward. So that conflict is there to move the story forward, okay? And it also tends to reveal deeper meanings of the story while highlighting characters' motives, values, and weaknesses. Okay. So there's two types of conflict. We have internal. The character struggles within themselves due to opposing desires or beliefs. The example is Kronk, right? Whenever the angel and the devil show up, that's his inner thoughts trying to battle it out. Is there anybody that's struggling with internal conflicts from the story?
Yes.
Who?
Lieutenant Cross.
Lieutenant Cross, right?
He's a freaky one.
Yeah, he is a little freaky. But Lieutenant Cross is
A
forever.
little.
He's battling his one desire versus his reality, right? And his responsibilities. So he's definitely we would call him a conflicted character. Then you have external. Okay? External.
He would rub his leg all up.
So the character struggles against something or someone outside themselves because his force is often out of their control and is standing in the way of their motives or goals. So a lot of times when you see these fighting, right, in the anime or even in the movies, that is an external. It's outside themselves. But what you do need to know is that a lot of times these external conflicts cause internal conflicts. Okay? So then those conflicts are also broken down further. There's 6 types of conflict. We have character versus self, which is mental or emotional struggles to make the right choice. I put right in quotations because it's not necessarily what you deem is right, it's what's right to that particular character. Okay? Right. So for example, if you look at Thanos, right? If you look at Thanos from the Marvel stories, he's considered the villain, right? He's the antagonist. But if you look at it from his perspective, he thinks he's doing the right thing, right? And even he has a character versus self struggle after he makes the choice, and especially after he kills Gamora, right? So it's depending on how you're looking at it, on what is right. Character versus character. This is the most standard form we see, right? Conflict, character versus character, hero versus villain, right? When the character's needs and wants are at odds with another character, a lot of times this will lead to internal conflict, okay? Because it causes the protagonist to rethink themselves, or even sometimes the antagonist. Then we have character versus nature. Nature such as weather, the wilderness, or a natural disaster is the enemy. So also again, while they're battling nature, it does tend to have internal conflict. Some movies that you might know is like 2012. They said Sharknado. That would definitely be one, yeah. Any of those movies where they're out battling things in nature. Okay, volcanoes, The Day After Tomorrow, anything like that, right? There's one movie called A Perfect Storm where they're battling a hurricane. One of my favorite short stories by Edgar Allan Poe is Character versus Nature. It's it's called Descent into the Maelstrom, and it's him battling a whirlpool. So, character versus supernatural. The character is battling phenomena like ghosts, gods, monsters, fate, and destiny. The playing field is normally tilted in the supernatural phenomena because you can't really beat something that you can't really touch, right? However, it makes it all the greater when the hero of that story overcomes it. So anytime you watch a horror movie, that's this, right? Anytime you see like the Greek tragedies, when they're talking about facing the gods, that's also. Percy Jackson was one that kids came up with earlier. That is definitely character versus supernatural. Character versus tech. The enemy is some form of technology, such as computers or robots, but can be any form of technology. So, iRobot, right? Those types of movies. Anytime you're battling that, there's actually a horror film where spirits come through the technology. So that would be two different, right? Character versus nature and supernatural. Technology and supernatural. But the technology I put in quotations is because right now, when we think about tech, we think about phones, we think about computers. But if you were in the 1920s, technology would be very different. So it's anything that's considered technology at the time. And then finally, character versus society. The character opposes society, the government, cultural traditions, and societal norms. This conflict is often inspired by the need to survive, a moral sense of right or wrong, or a desire for happiness, freedom, justice, and love. Again, this tends to also breed internal conflict. So, if you ever watch the Jackie Robinson movies, if you ever watch any movie that goes up against race or discusses race, the RBG movies, Ruth Bader Ginsburg ones, anytime it's you versus society, the main character versus society, that's a conflict. Now, notice that a lot of these conflicts can take place at the same time. And normally what they do is a whole bunch of them are happening and then they accumulate into one big conflict. That brings us to the plot. So a plot is defined as a literary term used to describe the events that make up the story or the main part of the story. And they're done in a certain pattern. And that pattern is normally called a plot diagram. I also call it a story progression organizer. Okay, so you guys are going to be filling this out as an assignment, and I'm going to show you how in a minute. But just for a breakdown, the introduction is the beginning of the story where the setting and characters are established. Most often, the conflict is also set up. Rising action is when there's a series of events that build up to the conflict. All the events often become more complicated. This is where you tend to get excitement, tension, or the crisis seems to be increasing. Okay? Then you have the climax, which is the main point of the plot, also considered the turning point of the story. This is a moment with the highest interest and emotions are experienced, and the reader is left wondering what happens next. Then you have falling action, and that tends to go pretty fast, right? The falling action. The story begins to wind down as the events and conflicts become resolved, and the result of the actions taken by the characters are presented, and then you have the wrap up, the resolution, where the story kind of just wraps it up. So your task is you're going to choose either the chapter, the things they carried, or in the field, and then you're going to go into your OneNote and you have a story progression. And pay close attention because I'm going to help you a little bit. So for both chapters, who do you think the protagonist would be?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant Cross. So you would put Lieutenant Cross.
He's the best character.
What's the setting?
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Okay, and the Vietnam War, right?
Mhm.
Okay, don't worry about themes because you're gonna learn about that Thursday, Friday. Okay, what genre is it?
War.
What genre? Huh? Hmm?
Fiction?
It's fiction, but what kind of fiction?
Realistic fiction.
Postmodern fiction. Postmodern fiction. This is where you're gonna put the title. So the things they carry, but you're gonna put the chapter title. Okay. This is the MLA header. What goes first? Huh?
Teacher's name?
No, your name.
Name, teacher's name.
I mean, if you want to give me credit for all your work, I'm not gonna take it. What's the next one?
Teacher's name,
Teacher's name,
then subject, then date.
the subject, and what else with the subject?
Wait, we gotta do that?
Period.
Um,
So what period is this?
theater.
Okay, and then the date. Okay. I want to explain this once, so you guys need to be paying attention. So if we're looking at the first chapter, what would be the climax? Because that's, to me, it's easier to start off with the climax, because then I can know which way I'm supposed to be going.
I'm smoking a dope.
What happens right before that?
Oh, yeah, they died.
Ted Lavender dies. Remember, because there's a before and after.
When Teddy died.
So Ted Lavender dies. I'm going to be super nice and help you. If you choose in the field, which I think would actually be the better one for this and the easier one, the climax is Kyle dies.
Kyle died? He dies?
Yeah.
That's it.
Kyle dies. Yes. And it's not it's a pretty, yes.
Why?
It wasn't, I think I'd rather the Ted Lavender death, but, so,
Whoa.
but yeah, Kyle dies, but you have to see how he dies, okay?
How did he die?
So I'm not gonna tell you. So what point of views do we think?
Sad.
Third.
It's third person, which one? Which,
Limited?
there's,
Omniscient.
is it omniscient? Yeah.
No. I guess. Because it's not all the characters, right? It's just one.
It's just one at a time. So
I want third person.
objective
Objective.
and limited.
Sounds right. I just have to have right.
Yeah. Okay, so the rest of you guys can fill in. You just need to give me like that little highlights. You can even do little bullet points, right, of what's happening. And then you're gonna make sure that you complete this in OneNote, and on Friday night, it's due, okay? So now you have two things due on Friday. You have the literary analysis, and then you have the story progression. I'm gonna give you a heads up of what we're gonna be doing for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we do, again, pictures. We're gonna have a vocabulary and grammar quiz. Then you guys will have your own work time so you can read. Thursday, we're gonna learn about themes. I use music videos for the themes, so be prepared to do that. And then on Friday, I'm gonna have more music videos, but they're tied to Vietnam, and we're gonna do the themes with the book. And then you will be assigned an assignment on Friday that you will turn in by Monday night, okay? Any questions? So that's just a heads up of what's coming. What's up? This paper is in OneNote. And if you need help with OneNote, let me know.
We make it ourselves.
No, it's already uploaded into OneNote. Okay? It's already like this in OneNote. You just use the text boxes to put it. Okay? Any questions? All right. So for the rest of the class period, you can either be reading, because again, you'll probably have a pop quiz on Thursday, or you can be working on your character analysis or this assignment. Yeah.
Like for the character analysis, there were more subtitles. How do you find that?
Okay, if you go back to the actual assignment and scroll down, it has the wheel and it tells you each category. Okay? So I'll show you. So let me erase all this. so you can see it. Also, so next week we start a new book called The Sorrows of War. It's by a Vietnamese author, and it's going to share his side with it. But then we'll be working on that for 2 weeks, and then after we're done with that, you get to choose your own book. But you have to be able to tell me what literary period it came from. So here's the assignment, right? And you just keep scrolling, and it gives you all the categories. So good question. Okay, any questions?
You do that all the way.
Huh?
You do that all the way.
In a Word document, yes. All of this is in a Word document. Yes. Yes. Read. It's pretty interesting. All right, guys.
I don't want to read.
So
the
be
book.
free at work. Don't get too loud, please.
She's my favorite character.